Thank you so much for everybody coming. You're going to make a celebration of my dad's life and hear some of the stories throughout the different stages of his life. So that is the number one thing we want to do. Part of it will be us giving individual experiences. Try to cover a lot of aspects of Dad's life, but then definitely want us to be able to visit, to hear from aspects of maybe Dad's life that we don't know about. So there's some aspects that are covered in the program, the obituary, but the idea is to read between the lines, hear the stories. There's definitely some stories that on this side of the room from the university years. Again, that's what we're here for. So thank you so much for coming, and we'll get it started. Dad enjoyed track and field, so his nephew was in track and field, so he will be the starter out of the blocks. I will turn it over to my cousin.
My late father always referred to his brother as my big brother. Never my brother Roger. Never my older brother Roger. It was always my big brother Roger. My uncle Roger was indeed older than my father. But my father did not use the word big as a reference to age or physical stature. He used the adjective big to describe his brother's presence, his personality, his humor, his laughter, his energy, his friendship, his kindness. Now, one would think that being Roger Elliott's little brother would be challenging for my father. But my father was proud to be Roger Elliott's little brother because he loved his big brother dearly. For me, as a child, my Uncle Roger was big in all aspects. His athletic accomplishments were legendary. His personality was big. And the stories were very, very, very funny. I remember being at family gatherings in Chicago Heights when Uncle Roger would come in. Now, I was younger, and I didn't understand what the word presence meant. I didn't even really get it. But I did know that when he walked into the room, you felt his presence. You knew he was there. Whether it was a smile or a laughter or the big booming voice. And you could feel the energy. You could feel the energy that he brought. But yet I remember him during those days, he would give me a big hug. He looked me right in the eyes and asked how I'm doing. He made it very personal that way. And what I had been up to in my life. It wasn't a superficial type greeting. He really meant it. He really wanted to know how we were doing. And that moment still impacts me to this very day. As I grew older, my encounters and conversations with Uncle Roger were authentic and genuine. He would ask me again how I was doing, how my family was doing. And then he would intently listen to what I had to say. And when I was finished telling him about how everyone was, he would ask me, is everybody happy? Because being happy is the most important thing. Those were his words to me. My Uncle Roger's wanted to be happy. He was happy. Sophie and I, my wife, were very fortunate to have Uncle Roger and Gail host us one day as we were moving from Tulsa, Oklahoma out to Hartford, Connecticut. All of our possessions in the U-Haul van, towing the truck, it was a mess. And I think we got to the house, I think I said we'd be there around 7, I think we showed up about 11, so thank you for that. But even during that time, the graciousness and his kindness just came through. At another event, a sporting event, my Uncle Roger attended a Saturday night football game, a playoff game, my oldest son, Grant. And it was Uncle Roger and Barbara made the game. And I remember this moment. My youngest son, Jack, who was 12 at the time, was sitting in the stands with us. It was late in the evening, and the game was still going on. So he was getting a little antsy. He was ready to go home. And a friend of ours joked with my son, asking if he was going to church tomorrow because he needed the blessing. And my son turned around, 12 years old now, as a matter of fact, and I said, no, I have a good house, I have a good family, I have a happy life. And I remember Uncle Roger and Barbara, they overheard that comment. And they just smiled and acknowledged that. Jack's perspective, that wise perspective from a 12-year-old. And I remember talking to Uncle Roger after that, and he pointed that out. And that impact, obviously, his impact obviously had, that moment had an impact on Jack, had an impact on all of us. And I'm sure, like many of you who have been impacted by his words, and his kindness, and his energy. My Uncle Roger will always be with me and my family. I will miss him dearly.
I'm have to read from my phone. I don't want to look up to prevent from crying. I knew more about my Uncle Roger through the few stories my father shared with me. My father was a huge fan of his older brother, expressing that Uncle Roger was the father figure my dad didn't have due to him losing his own father at a very young age. Through the stories that were shared, Dad always made it a point to express proudly and with great passion at the conclusion of each how he had the best big brothers in the world. How the respect he had for them was so special that he couldn't even bring himself to use profanity in their presence. My fondest memory is of being at my grandmother's house one summer holiday. It was the only time I could recall being under the same roof with all of my grandmother's children. I can still hear the laughter and see the smile on the faces of those present, enjoying the company of others and the good food that Granny had prepared that included some barbecue. To this day, the smell of barbecue sauce dripping on a hot grill brings back this nostalgia of that particular day. While listening to conversations taking place between the brothers, it was then that I learned how well-spoken Uncle Roger was in comparison to my own father. But what I paid close attention to was how the three brothers really seemed to be enjoying one another as they discussed sports. As I stand here and I reflect back on that day, I can see why my dad felt like he had the best big brother in the world. I believe the reason I had a high level of respect for my Uncle Roger is because of what my dad unknowingly exposed me to through his stories. While I wish I had been able to spend more time with my uncle and didn't know him for myself, I will always have the smell of sauce on the grill to take me back to the most precious memory of those three brothers spending time together at Granny's house.
Hello, everyone. So, my dad, the late William Elliott, thought Uncle Roger was a celebrity, which he was. And he bragged a lot about his brother. I went to Bloom High School, and Uncle Roger's in the Hall of Fame at Bloom High School. And my dad would let it be known to make sure when you go down that hallway, you look at Uncle Roger on the wall. So I did. And if I talk to him again, like, hey, did you go to school today? Yeah, did you see Uncle Roger? Dad, I saw him the last time. I don't care, go see him again. So I made it my business when I went to gym class to walk through the Hall of Fame part of Bloom to observe Uncle Roger on the wall and also Derek, because they were actually kind of like side by side. I'm going to address what is a brother. A brother is a man who shares the same parents. What does the Bible say about a brother? Christ instructs us to love one another as he loved them, promoting a sense of community and shared responsibility. Christian brotherhood involves supporting and caring for one another, exemplifying the idea that all believers are part of a larger family of God. What does a brotherhood symbolize? What are you willing to do for your brother? Is a fervent, passionate intensity? It's an oath to face danger, fear, and even give your life, if necessary, for your brother. It was not a matter of receiving, but it's a matter of giving. Brotherhood also symbolizes that you are not alone. What is the greatest gift of having a brother or a brotherhood? Having a sense of accountability. There are brothers you can be vulnerable with, confide in, and that gives you the sense of responsibility to be a better you and reach your goals no matter what they are. A brotherhood must not be taken for granted. Proverbs 18:19 states, an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. Arguments separate friends like a gate locked with bars. Proverbs 18:24 states that there are real friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. The Word of God also reminds us that he who has a friend must first show himself friendly. As I stated, my dad adored his brothers. Uncle John was my right-hand man while I was caring for my dad because my dad respected him so much. If John said he better not, he did it. Uncle Roger was not able to be there to intervene, but I know that if he was able to do so, he would have. My dad loved them, he highly respected them, and Granny should have been so forever proud that she raised her children, a single mother, and all of them grew up to be pretty successful. My dad was spoiled, very spoiled. Somebody didn't pinch him when he was little. But he was loved, and he dearly loved his brothers. And I'm proud to be a part of the Elliott family. I didn't get to know my uncle as well as I would like to, but I will say this. He gave me and my sons tickets to an HBCU game in Cincinnati, a Circle City Classic. And that's when I met Miss Barbara. I think Ernest was 12, Kiera was 10 years old. And we had perfect seats. We stayed out there all day, it was hot. But we just kept moving from seat to seat to avoid the sun. It was a beautiful day. My sons played sports, and I wanted them to get the experience of an HBCU, just the band itself, the music. And Uncle Roger and Miss Barbara, they kind of sat down in the shaded areas. My sons just kept wanting to move from one section of the stadium to the other. And that's my most memorable moment with Uncle Roger.
I'm supposed to go last.
Wait for my dear sister here. I'm on hold. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marian Jackson, Hope Jackson, and Jackie Clark. These are my sisters. Roger was a great uncle to me. My grandmother used to take me to his football games and track meets at Blue. I'll be in the stand, yelling and screaming just like she was. And I took up sports because of him, because he was a great athlete. And I was proud to see him, like, stay in the Hall of Fame. Every time I go to a basketball game, I see him in the Hall of Fame. And Ambassador Randolph, he'd be like an uncle. There's no way. The man is great, beyond great. I respect him as a great man and a great uncle. But one thing we all agree upon will be another Roger Elliott. He's one of a kind. A great man, a great athlete, and I love my Uncle Raj. That's what I used to call him, Uncle Raj. He's still in my heart and will be in my heart. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about my Uncle Roger. That he was a very good thinker and entrepreneur to the point that he made his own cereal, and delicious too. And he was a smart guy, but every time he came over to our house, he always made sure he asked us, what you want to be when you grow up? And you had to have an answer. Unless you want to get that $5. So we made sure we let him know that, you know, what we want to be in life, and we ask you a question, why did you pick that? Oh my God, another question? So we had to explain why we picked that field that we want to go to, and we got $5. He also made his own cereal. I don't know if you guys know that, but he made his own brand of cereal. And it was delicious. And that's part of his entrepreneur, and I appreciate that. And he made me a thinker also. And I appreciate that about him. Thank you. And this is my daughter Mariah. One more thing. This is my daughter Mariah, and she's an entrepreneur too. She got her own skincare, and I told her that you might get that from your uncle. Thank you guys.
The only thing I'm going to say about my brother-in-law, he told me to take care of his sister. That's it. We've been married 61 years. And that's all I can say about my brother-in-law. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. To begin, thank you, Roger, for giving us all the opportunity to remember Mr. Elliott today. Know that we, and Mama more than any Harris or Hicks, share in the grief of your loss and will rejoice in celebration of his memory. Mr. Elliott was, first and foremost, the man and mom of his life. Together, for more than 30 years, we watched them build a relationship, and then a business, and a network of friends that spans our country and a few other countries to boot. Because Mr. Elliott never met a stranger. He could strike up long conversations with anyone and everyone. I've watched him do it. How fortunate are we that one of those conversations was in an auto repair shop with our mother. The rest is history. Mr. Elliott came into our lives as Mama's friend. He left as family. He was part of every Christmas celebration. No trip to Columbus was ever complete until we took the swing by Mr. Elliott's house, where he always had something for you. Yeah, Tony, you and Paula, come on by. I got something for you. They tell me it's pretty good. See how you like it. And we always left with something to sip on, or a book to read, or snacks and juices for the kids. You never left empty-handed. And that is part of the memory we will always have of him. His open-handedness, his generosity, and a voice that carried across the noisiest room, booming, and probably citing some sports statistic or maybe trying to recall an athlete's name. Tony, you know who I'm talking about. Played center for the Redskins about 8 years ago. And I died. And I think it looked like I was searching my brain for a name that I knew wasn't there. And 5 minutes later, he called it out, and I go, oh, him, yeah. I know who you're talking about. I had no idea who he was talking about. Mr. Elliott was part of every family reunion. He and Mama had it orchestrated. For every 2 years, we'd assemble in Maumee or Lexington or Cincinnati, and anyone arriving would stop through their room to say hello. And yes, leave with cereal, chips, crackers, candy, and juices. The Roger Elliott Company sponsored our t-shirts. Just know that every Logan Smith t-shirt, should you ever see one around the city, was provided quietly and like clockwork by Mr. Elliott. He had a heart as big as his voice, and his generosity spread beyond family. For a number of years, he donated book bags that were given to Chicago area school kids. He donated socks and scarves and blankets that were given and that warmed countless unhoused people. The only reason I know this is because he'd ask, Tony, I want to get book bags into the hands of students who need them. You know any organizations I can send them to? And all he wanted in return was a few pictures of kids with book bags or people receiving blankets. Our children, early on, called him Mr. Elliott because they couldn't pronounce his name. He and Mama watched them play basketball and volleyball from grade school right through college. Perhaps the one characteristic that was bigger than his voice and more evident than his generosity is his passion for sports. He did not just travel to see our kids play. No. They went to bowl games. They went to classics. Now, I love track and field. Mr. Elliott loved track and field. And I know many of you do too, just hearing your stories. There were Sundays I would talk to Mom and she'd say, oh, I saw so-and-so, probably someone from our dating track days, down at the Mansfield Relays. And I'm thinking to myself, Mansfield Relays? Who do you know that's running at the Mansfield Relays? Oh, no one. We just went to watch the meet. Now, if any of you know anything about track, and I just said I know you do, you know that going to a meet is an investment. They last all day long. And track in Ohio usually means you're sitting in cold and rain in April and May, and baking in the sun at the state meet in June. But they were there. They knew not a soul on the track, but they were there. I long believed that there's a special place in heaven for parents who brave the elements to watch their own children run in 1 or 2 races, usually 6 hours apart. I can only imagine a special place reserved for Mr. Elliott, who supported everyone's child all week long. Roger, Mama, no one knows more than you how difficult the last 2 years have been. Mr. Elliott often joked about being in the 4th quarter. We'd laugh and the conversation would move on to other things. He lived all quarters of his life just as he wanted, at least all the quarters I know. His care and integrity were the hallmarks of an unblemished character. He called them like he saw them. He had a way of challenging my thinking without telling me point blank that I had to live long enough yet and just be patient. He spoke often of humble beginnings, of the glory days that bloomed, of hard-fought victories as a leatherneck down in Western Illinois. He shared the difficulties he and his black teammates faced. He shared about his lifelong and deep friendships with men I'd met for the first time today. Mr. Brooke Register, Mr. Leroy Jackson, who, I've been told, by Mr. Elliott that if he got Mr. Jackson the baton anywhere in the state of Illinois, the race was over. He was a football player, an athlete. The epitome of being battle-scarred and fighting in the trenches. A glowing example of how, in order to overcome adversity, you must first know how adverse the situation is, and then fight to overcome it. And overcome it, he did. I'm reminded of the closing lines of the Grantland Rice poem, if only because it captures the uphill heart, the attitude I believe Mr. Elliott maintained. Now, Mr. Elliott would probably laugh out loud to hear it and then say, yeah, but what is even? And he'd be right. Even so, I leave you with this. At the end of the poem, the title is Alumnus Football. Grantland Rice writes, you'll find the road is long and rough with soft spots far apart, where only those can make the grade who have the uphill heart. And when they stop you with a thud or halt you with a crack, let courage call the signals as you keep on coming back. Keep coming back, and though the world may romp across your spine, let every game's end find you still upon the battling line. For when that one great scorer comes to mark against your name, he writes, not that you won or lost, but how you played the game. While he'd appreciate Rice's sentiment, I think I know that he would say, yeah, but one team wins and one team loses. That's why they keep score, Tony. Mr. Elliott, though you're no longer in the game is better that you were in it. Your fourth quarter ended and you played it well. Enjoy your rest and let we, who are yet battling on the line, fight on.
Well, I'm Barbara's daughter, Lee, and my daughter Logan is here. Logan, can you bring those cookies up for me, please? And as my brother states, Mr. E, as I called him, was my mom's, this was the love of her life. He was an additional third grandfather to my husband, Mariko, and our children. And so, you know, as a military family, we would often have trips traveling back home. There were few and far between, but every time we would travel back to Columbus, that meant two things. That meant seeing family and catching up. And it also meant that we would get guaranteed snacks from Mr. E. It consisted of sugary cereals, snack cakes, fruit, ice cream, and at my mother's urging, you know, fruit, healthy snacks. And it was whatever deals he could find at Mark's or Myers. You know, he'd always watch the, you know, the coupon, the circular, and see, well, what they got on sale. So he was definitely a man who could find a good deal anywhere he was. Mr. E taught me what to look for in a husband. Being a man that came into my mother's life and my life, I was an adventurous and energetic teenager. So he came into my life, and when he did, he showed me what it meant to be a considerate gentleman. He brought my mother the Sunday newspaper every Sunday on time, accompanied with flowers, usually roses. He would greet my mother with love and with warmth, and he treated her like a lady, which is what most women would want in their life. And it taught me that's what I want from my husband. So a couple of years later, when I met my husband, I found my friends. And he and my husband definitely became fast friends. So he always had great stories and what I like to call Roger-isms, you know, his sayings. And as my brother said, he would purchase T-shirts for our family reunion every other year, sponsored by Roger Elliott Company biannually, and it was certainly appreciated by our family They wore them proudly, and, you know, we still have each t-shirt from every union, and we appreciated that. He was an adventurous man who definitely loved to travel. He sparked my mom's love of travel. You know, they've been to the Caribbean, trips to Alaska, Canada, Cuba, and their final trip was to Barbados. He was also an inspiring man. He definitely inspired me to travel as we traveled throughout the world and throughout our country. And, you know, teaching my children all about the area that we were in. He inspired me to not just go where the tourists go, but go beyond, you know, the beaten path. He would always inquire about our whereabouts and where we were living, and he's always kept up with my kids, and not just my kids and their activities, but also the activities of that of my husband's family in Columbus. He would definitely make sure he made it to my nephew Grant's sporting events, you know, whether it was to watch him play basketball or, and he and my mom would be sitting in the stands. So being that support that we couldn't be because we were a military family. He was a thoughtful and a kind man of God. One thing he has in common with my daughter Logan is the love of TD Jakes. And he definitely applied those principles of God to his life. The last time seeing him was in my mother's home. My mom would bring him every Sunday to her house to cook him a home-cooked Sunday dinner. And he was always jovial and always happy to be there and always happy to see our family. And he would always repeat the importance of heeding my mother's advice. He'd say things like, I just do what she tells me to, kid. You know? And it always works out better that way, he would say. My last words to him as my mother readied her car to drive him home were, Mr. E, I truly appreciate all that you do for my mother. Your love in her life has definitely made a difference. And his reply was that of shock and awe. He said, well, I appreciate that, kid, but it's no skin off my back. She makes it easy to do. So I gave him a hug, and off they went back to his home. So again, I say thank you, Mr. Elliott. You've made a difference, not just in my mother's life, but in the lives of our entire family.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I like that Roger. You know, he always expressed a desire to be called or to be something different, which he was. When he came to Western Illinois, when I first met him, this big old guy, 240 pounds, 6'2", with a gruffy voice, trying to be tough, acting tough, want to be the big wheel, the big person on campus. And here I am, a little mere 165 pound guy, stood up to him and said, wait, where are you from? He said, from Chicago Heights. I said, where's that? And so he went on to say it was Chicago Heights. Why? I said, I still don't know where it is. And we talked, and finally he said, okay, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Rock Island, Illinois. He said, where's that at? And so from that point on, we sort of like got along with each other. And as time went along, we became very good friends. I was the epitome of his eye in a way, because I was like don't carefree guy, could care less about what happened in life. And he was a guy that had lived a life because he had to be the father of the family that there was no father was. And so I gave him a little relief at that point to be able to do the things that I did and give him the opportunity to do the things he wanted to do as an individual. But I just want to go on a little bit to say something here about Bloom High School provided Roger the opportunity to bloom athletically and personally. They didn't say anything about education or economically. And Roger was a very educated individual. I mean, when he would hear a word that he had not heard before, he'd run to the dictionary and check it out. And he made sure that he would know exactly what that word from that point on. Economically, he knew that he had to make it well in this world by being an entrepreneur in some kind of way and working for the man. And as time went along, we parted from West Illinois. I left West Illinois in 1962 on my journey to my chore of life. And eventually Roger left in 63, and he ended up in Baldwinsville near Syracuse. But in the process, you know, as everybody was saying, Roger was an outstanding athlete, which he obviously was. And his goal in life at that time, he wanted to be a professional football player. And he expressed to me all the agony and the pain that happened to him when he went and tried out for the Denver Broncos and he did not make the team. Because that was a dream that he felt like that it should have been in his favor, because he had been the top athlete throughout his life. And everybody expected him eventually to become a professional football player. Even I. If anybody had told me that Roger would not have been a professional football player, I would have called him a liar. And we had a long talk about that particular situation. I had invited him and a lot of my schoolmates from Western Illinois in 2010 to Buffalo, New York. By the way, Buffalo is a good place to be. And at that ceremony in Buffalo, let me stop for a minute. Let me just say this. I played 10 years for Buffalo Bills. So just perspective so you know what I'm saying here. I played 10 years for the Buffalo Bills, and then I played a couple years for the Denver Broncos. But the fact is that I didn't get those kind of honors just by being there. I played the game the way it should have been played. And in 2010, I was honored by the Buffalo Bills to put my name on the wall of fame up there in the stadium. But the biggest attraction was my friends from Western Illinois in my hometown. And Leroy Jackson, who's standing here, who also got drafted into the National Football League the same year I went into the Football League. I had Jim Shipp, Dr. Freeman, Al Lamont, and a bunch of people there to celebrate my celebration. But Roger and I had a long talk about his situation of playing professional football. And it was great. But he went on to be a very successful individual. There were some of the things that we did in college that was crazy. For instance, we went to Arkansas State, which was one school that had not played any minorities or any minority schools or minorities that played in their stadium at any point. And Roger was a key factor, right, Leroy? Yeah. And it was a great game. They had a saying, 1, 2, 3, get the Negro. 1, 2, 3, see how far he can throw. And then Leroy here broke off for a 68-yard touchdown run, and they called it back. And they said, why? They said, there was holding on the play. Who was holding? Number 68. Well, he was 68. How can he be holding when he ran for a touchdown? But that's the way they was trying to cheat us to make sure that we didn't win. Those are the things that we learned through college. We had to teach each other the things that we had to know to get out of school to become successful in life. And that's what we did. Another big thing was that Rock Island, in my hometown, and then I'm gonna let Leroy talk a little bit, is that Roger loved to eat, and my mother loved to cook. And when we used to go home, visit my mother or my family, she would always cook for Roger. I said, wait a minute, what about me? You know, she said, well, he looks like he needed something to eat. And I said, excuse me? Roger looked like a rock of Gibraltar. I mean, there's no question he didn't look like he needed something to eat. But my mother felt like that he needed something to eat. That's only because she just loved to cook and she just wanted to feed somebody. And Roger was the one to sit there and say, okay, bring it on. and so we had a great time with that. But my life with Roger has been outstanding. We did a lot of things together. I always thought that Roger was one of the pillars of my success because we were able to talk about a lot of things that we was not able to talk and do when we was at Western Illinois University. And as my life became a little bit more successful, Roger's life became very successful because he went into business and he did a lot of things for a lot of people. And Tony and all the other people up here who expressed their situation about Roger, and all I can say is ditto. I can talk for the next 3 hours and never mention or come up with the things that Roger have done over the past 80 years. So with that being said, Leroy, you got it.
Thank you, brother. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bernice Jackson. I know a lot of you have probably heard about me. But my friend Roger, everybody has said some very nice things about him. And they're all true. When I first met Roger, was way back when we were in grade school. He went to Franklin School, I went to Lincoln School. So a bunch of us one day decided to try out for Little League Baseball. They had never had a Little League Baseball team, a black baseball team. So me, Roger, Larry Clark, and a few other guys said, let's try out. So we went out to try out for basketball, baseball, excuse me. And we all made a team. So Roger decided he wanted to play the infield. So we got out on the infield, coach hit the ball to the player, the ball hit Roger in the chest. He jumped down and said, no, I can't play the infield. I got to find some other places to play. Coach said, well, how about the outfield? So he said, okay, go out in the outfield. He made it in the outfield. Since he got out in the outfield, he said, well, I got to give myself a name around here. Everybody else got a nickname around here. I'm going to call myself the My or Roger. And from then on, his nickname is the My or Roger. And everybody on the team seemed to have a nickname, but me. He didn't know my nickname. There was only one person on that team that knew my nickname, and I'll try to tell you the name. That was my other friend, Dale Gary. My nickname as a teenager was Bony Dog. I was small, thin, and wiry, but everybody else around me was much bigger than me. Roger, Dale, and all the other guys were well built. I was small, but I made up for it with my skills and things. Well, from then on, Roger and I became close friends. We got to junior high school, we played basketball. Sometimes during the summertime, we had to work part-time jobs. He worked at one park in the Heights, I worked at the other. Then go to school, then we went to room. I was 1 year ahead of him. And some of the crazy things we did during the summer, y'all would not believe. We started playing football. We became famous by playing football. And we didn't play tag football. We played tackle. No equipment, no helmet, no nothing. And the surprising thing about it, we never got hurt. We be tackling each other, punching each eyes out, punching everybody out, but we never got hurt. So as that time went on, we would graduate on up to juniors, seniors, and my senior year at Bloom was the first time a high school, Bloom Township High School, became undefeated and untied in the sports history of the school. And he was my right-hand man. He played right tackle. And anytime we wanted 5 or 6 yards for a better call, Roger, we need it. I didn't have to worry about it. They handed me the ball. I'd go. And sometimes the coach would get mad about it because Roger would run down the field with me being the pitcher across the goal line. I have several pictures of him, me and him coming across the goal line, hand in front of me, he'd give that smile. He always gave me that smiling thing. Then I left Bloom, went to Western Illinois University. And he always tells the story about how he came to Western Illinois. It was funny. The coach came to would come by and pick us up and bring us back to school. So instead of coming by and pick me up, I'm standing there waiting for the coach to come pick me up. He ain't got it yet. I'm still there an hour late. I'm still waiting. So what happened, somebody had told him that Roger had got a scholarship. So coach said, I'm gonna get this guy. So when I found out later on that he always talking about, he came to Roger's house, packed Roger's suitcase and trunk, put it in the back of the car and said, you going to Western Illinois. So he wanted to know Western Illinois with me and Booker. And he always would tell us about that story, I ain't got to Western Illinois. But also too, during our tenure here at Western, we also had an undefeated team there. So me and him were the 2 luckiest guys around. We played on 2 undefeated teams, one in high school and one in college. And we got booked to go to one in college because we were supposed to play in a bowl game. And Booker could verify this. The rest of the teams, schools in that league, I think they were kind of jealous of the team we had. Because the school that didn't like us rescinded on us going to the bowl game. So we never did get a chance to play in the bowl game. And further on, after we left Western Illinois, I sort of lost contract with Roger for about 10 years. And in 2000, I think it was 2008, they had a celebration for Bloom being 100 years old. We met again. And we connected again. And we stayed in contention till, another 10 years, and I lost it again. Then some of the guys at the university decided that we have a reunion of all the people from Western Illinois. Because back in those days, there were too many blacks go to college. And we started losing individuals every once in a while, somebody would pass away. And we never knew about it until 4 or 5 years later. So we started having a meeting in each one of our home state or town. And we'd gather there, have a good time, and we celebrate what we talk about in Bloom, our background, Western Illinois, and how successful we were. But it was a great experience, and I loved Roger. Me and him would always talk about our stuff too, and especially in track. Everybody used to laugh at him when he got on the field. They thought he should be over at the shotgun pit. But I'd always tell him, say, Roger, don't worry about that shotgun pit. Hey, tell him that you'll see my spikes when I go in and turn. All you will do is eat dirt and down and around. And most of the time that would happen. And I'd go to the guy and say, how did them spikes and dirt taste? And they couldn't say nothing because I knew once he got there with Charles, it was all over. But nobody would catch him. There was very few people, even if we were losing, when the baton got to Roger, I had no fear. All he would do is just give me the baton and I'll finish it up. So that's what all I have to say about Roger, but I'll show him this. But he was a good friend and teammate for all these years. Thank you.
We're close to eating. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to share a few things, give you a little perspective of what it was like to be the son of Roger Elliott. First of all, I was born in Syracuse, New York. Okay, so dad left Western Illinois, me and mom, and then they moved to the East Coast. And dad was proud to say that I was from Syracuse, New York. Okay? So I'm going to make a distinction here. I'm making a distinction because there's no offense. Right? Dad loved Chicago Heights. Okay? He loved Chicago Heights. But he was proud that his son did something different. Okay? I'm going to mention that a couple times when I'm speaking. Right? So you can be proud of something, but still want something for somebody else. Right? So we've heard firsthand results of how Dad wasn't. I'm going to go a little off script a little bit, but there was never pressure to live up to who he was. Okay. Athletically, there was visually pressure. What do I mean by that? Table over here. Right? He believed in friends, right? So he talked about them, he lit up speaking about them, and he encouraged me when I was at the university, hey, your teammates, stay in touch, find out how they're doing, meet up, right? And it just wasn't talking, that's what he did, that's why they light up when they talk, right? They would have their reunions, and sometimes Dad would invite me. Now, why in the world is the son going to be with them? So I could see firsthand what it was like to be a friend, right? So thank you for all the years with my dad. I appreciate it. I'm trying to apply it. I'll go back to script a little bit. So, took a couple years once mom and dad moved to Syracuse, New York before I was born. They caught a little pressure from my grandparents because back then, between your marriage and your kid was a shorter period of time. So my grandfather was like, hey, what's going on? You know what's going on? So what was important to my dad was that I was raised in a house and I had a yard. That was really important to him. Given the way he was raised, he just felt like an opportunity for his son to be in a house and to have a yard and not have to worry about being loud in the house and have people complain because you're too noisy and that you can't play where you want to play. So that was important to him. As mentioned, Dad met people, didn't take him a long period of time before they were friends. He had some business colleagues out, Mr. Clarence Brown and Mr. Norvell Hawkins. So they met up, I forget, it was Mr. Brown's house. And I was like, I don't know, 8 years old. It was warm out. So what I remember was, voices got loud, and I'm outside, so voices got loud. Man, you don't know. I go, what's going on? Voices are getting loud? Man, I'll beat you right now. Next thing I know, my dad, Mr. Hopkins, going out into the front sidewalk, they're going to race. Right. I'm a little tight. I'm watching this. So you sure you want to do this? He's looking at Mr. Hopkins, right? And he hits this, which you see in most competitive people, right? They get this look, right? So all due respect, when certain athletes get that look, this is going to be a problem, right? So he looked at Mr. Hopkins and he was like, you sure you want to do this? He said, yeah, let's go. So So sure enough, it was like a 40-yard sprint. 4, 5 steps, Dad was already out. And of the things that Dad was known for, I guess, back in high school, the training. So after he got a distance away from Mr. Mockridge, he goes, and he just walked off, that was it, right? So I remember his competitiveness right then and there. I also, there was another event he was at that, Dad smoked for a period of time. And he smoked and he just threw it, which was a common thing at the time, threw it on the sidewalk. So kept him a little tight. So Dad walks away. Run over there, grab that cigarette. Now, I don't smoke today, right? That was a bad intro. What I later realized is that you can't always do what other people do, right? You love them, great examples, can't always do that, right? So that was a lesson learned at the time. Lived in Baldwinsville, New York. My introduction to Little League Baseball. Most of you probably don't know this story because I wasn't very good at it. Right? So I lasted one season. Dad was more disappointed to see me not play baseball. And I'm going to tell you why. So Dad volunteered to be the umpire. Okay? He was calling balls and strikes. Loved it, entertained. And he was having more fun at baseball than I was, right? If it appeared like it was going to be a close play at first base, Dad would throw off his mask and run to first base before the kids would get there, and then he would make the call. Save! Right? He looked for opportunities to challenge himself. And again, I'm sure when I told him I was not going to play baseball another year, his face was just like, no. But they appreciated him so much. They made a little ceramic colored umpire for my dad. You would have thought that was a Super Bowl trophy, right? Because he had connected, right? He connected with parents, he connected with athletes, so he was really proud of that. Columbus, Ohio was our next destination. Again, I'm probably 10 years old. I remember my first track meet. I was part of a summer program, and I think I was going to run like the 40 or the 50. So again, that's spring, right? This is an opportunity for us to bond over track and field. So he explains to me, I got like 2 weeks before I have to run in this race. And he says, it's all going to be in your start. It's all going to be in your start. So I'm going to work with you. So our backyard is adjacent to a park. So sure enough, he says, I'm going to work with you on your start. So get down in your start position, and then I'm going to call it go. Right? So what he did is he put his hand in the air. He calls go. Right? Then he goes like this. Right? If I'm not fast enough, I get hit in the butt. Right? So I had to stay out there till I was fast enough not to get hit in the butt. Right? So, unfortunately, in my track and field years later on, I was never known as a fast starter. So I guess Dad should have given me a little more attention. The sport that I did really embrace was soccer. Dad really didn't understand soccer. Dad was at every soccer game. Didn't know anything about it. He was at every soccer game. Never played football. Obviously Dad loved football. I never played. It never even came up in conversation. Right? Why is that? Right? By now you've known me a period of time, right? I'm not an aggressive guy. If you're gonna play football at the level that my dad played, you gotta be for real. Right? So there's no reason just to be messing around with something if you're not gonna be for real at it, right? I understood that. There's no debate, right? I'm not trying to play football. But I appreciated his recognition that, again, going back to the cigarette, right? Sometimes you can't do what somebody else will do, even if it's your father, right? And at times, you find your own way, right? And I was gonna find my own way, and it wasn't gonna be football. Soccer and track we had in common. Decision making, I'll jump to living in Columbus, Ohio, went to St. Francis de Sales High School. Appreciate my parents supporting me going to St. Francis de Sales High School. I know it wasn't easy economically, situationally to go to a parochial school, but they felt like that was important for me, so I'm grateful for that. My sophomore year, I was playing soccer, I was playing basketball, and I was on the track and field team. My grades weren't the greatest my sophomore year, so a decision has to be made. You can pick two. So I picked soccer and I picked track and field, right? Lesson learned, right? Sometimes you gotta evaluate how you're doing and then make a decision, right? If it's not turning out the way you expect, you can't keep doing the same thing and getting certain results and think all of a sudden it's gonna change, right? So I had put myself in a position to do the right things to play 3 sports, and one of them have to go, right? So, learn that. Little sentimental story here. So senior year, junior year in high school, I finished third in the 400 meters, okay? So, finished third as a junior, you know, senior year, you're got high expectations, right? So most of the year, obviously I'm beating people. 3 weeks before our conference meet, and I pulled my hamstring. Never been hurt. Pulled my hamstring, and back then, wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. Dad took me to off-site rehab. There was no rehab in high school, right? So, missed a few days, right, but I was going to rehab. 3 weeks, trying to get ready for the conference meet, and they tell me, you're not ready. Like, man, I'm a good teammate, want to win. He's like, you know, son, after the conference meet is a district. This conference meet don't really mean much. Yeah, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. He respected that. Sure enough, about the 250 mark, boom, hurt it. Started to do something too early. He was right, right? Yeah, I won the conference meet, but I wasn't ready for 2 more weeks to go to the district. When I say I'm not ready, there's a reason why I'm telling this story and throwing it out, right? So district comes up, I'm not really ready, but kind of. It's at Westerville South High School. It's in the evening, it's raining, and the temperature drops. As we're talking, it's cold. So they call the meet for a timeout. Hour. Right. Any athlete knows you get cold in your leg, if it's hurt, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. So I didn't qualify to go forward. So the ride home with mom and dad was a real quiet ride. Right? A dream died. Right? Can't be state champion that often in your life. Right? A dream died. So the reason I'm going on about this story, it's not really an athletic story. What it told me is, as much as I like being a team person, and I'm a team-oriented person, right? There are some situations you have to be selfish, right? Doesn't mean you're a selfish person, but you gotta make a selfish decision on what's best for you, right? That's the lesson that I learned. Because not only did I not achieve what I wanted, there was a lot of dreams that were tied up in that, and I made a bad decision, right? But that happens. You respond, you pivot, you do better. You're transparent with other people, you tell them, hey, this is what I did, you don't want to do anything like this in your future, right? So, University of Cincinnati, the logic for me to go to University of Cincinnati was my dad was really supportive. It's an hour and a half maybe, depending on who's driving. They enjoyed being at my event, so I wanted them to be able to see me run. The University of Cincinnati had just finished completing the College of Business, a new building. Dad was like, hey, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm not really sure. He said, go into business. Can't go wrong, right? So ended up getting my BBA, and I'll make a distinction because there's not that many schools that you get a BBA from, okay? A Bachelor's of Business Administration, okay? What that basically is you get all the fundamentals of business. Most of us hear about MBAs, right? But a BBA is basically a cheaper version, and I'm not disparaging MBAs, but it's a cheaper version of an MBA. But my dad's point was, you're gonna get all of that, right? And they'll put you in a better position in terms of being successful in business. So appreciated that guidance from him. Interesting thing at University of Cincinnati, the track and field teammates would always be excited when my dad and my parents came. They would approach my parents before I got to them, right? What did I learn from that? Right? Many, and my dad was one of them, many athletes, very specifically many black athletes, do not have parents to show up. They don't have anybody that shows up, parent or not a parent, for a number of different reasons, right? Not necessarily their fault. Dad was committed to show up for me, and he would be cheering for other athletes on the team, just not as much as me, but he would give them some love, right? And they appreciated it, right? And I got a lot of texts and calls of support, because of that, because of those memories and seeing his examples. Getting close to the end, last few comments that I would have is, I'll quote one of Dad's favorite sayings, nothing comes to a sleeper but a dream. What I appreciated, trying to do my best with too, strong work ethic. Never saw my dad not get up to go to work. Never. Myself, I'm going to school, committed to teams, committed to work, because of his example. There's a quote that's in the obituary. Dad came up with his own version of it, but it still is the quote. So this is Dad's quote. The poem in Dad's version is, the saddest word of song or pen are these that might have been. So those aren't the exact words of the poem, but it's the same point, right? Don't live life with regret, right? So you can see over the years, what I really appreciated is growing, right? Wasn't the same, didn't try to be the same person yesterday as he could be in the future. There was growth. He grew as a person, he grew with relationships, he tried to do better in areas that he felt like he could do better in. And I think we all want to do that. Make evaluations and look for areas that we can improve and do better with. Last one, go a little off script here. We'll do my best on this part. Had the opportunity, obviously, to show some pictures here. Okay? Stages of my life. I think one thing that's noteworthy, I was talking to a few people over, a few cousins about it, is the youngest picture that you know of your parents. The youngest picture that you've seen of your parents. Okay? So you see my baby picture in there, right? I don't have a baby picture of my dad. Only picture that I have starts in high school. Okay? Some of you can relate. Right? Why is that? The manner in which they grew up. What's the price of the camera? What's the price of getting film developed? Right? When you try to put food on the table, how important is a camera in getting film developed? Okay? My point, and what I'm very grateful for, is that there's so much we did not have in common, because he was committed that that wasn't going to be my path, right? I can appreciate it. I appreciate it more and more as I got older, but in some ways, you can't feel it the same way, right? I appreciate hearing the stories of Western and Bloom. It's one thing to listen to it, it's another thing to feel it, right? So, same thing, going back to my comment about football, right? Either you're in it or you're not in it, right? You don't really pretend. My dad, even as I was growing up, I remember him respecting older people, right? Older friends, going to see them when you visit the Heights, right? Mr. Bones in Van Wert, Ohio, some man I never even knew who he was, but my dad met him professionally, and then whenever he was in that area, the gentleman, Mr. Bones, was in a home, Dad would go and visit him. So many examples. Obviously, strong impression on me. Miss him, love him, and what we're going to do now is do what he enjoyed doing, and that is eating, and then visiting with each other. So I'll ask Reverend Washington to give us a prayer of thanksgiving, and then we'll eat, and then we will continue to do what my dad likes to do, and that is visit and fellowship and encourage.
The Bible says, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. And I'm glad today to be a part of this celebration of life. Amen. And I'm a minister, Baptist minister. I preach at the church not too far from here. But I'm going to do just what they asked me to do. Amen. I'm going to give a prayer of thanksgiving. Is that all right? We've heard so many good, great comments, and it's a challenge for me to stand with some of these men that I admired even when I was younger, and still yet admire. And Roger Elliott Sr. was one of those men. Amen. Let us give a prayer of thanksgiving. Won't you bow your heads with me? Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this food that we're about to receive. We thank you, oh God, for those who have prepared it. And yes, God, we thank you for the family and friends that we're going to share this bounty with. Oh God, we ask that you would see to it that this food enables our bodies and strengthens our spirits. And thank you once again so much for the celebration of life that we're here to honor this great man. Again, bless this food. In the name of Jesus, we pray. If you can agree with that prayer, just say with me, Amen. I think someone's probably going to come and give us directions. One of the services will give direction. Amen.